World of Warcraft's 9th expansion, Dragonflight, launched on November 28th, 2022, with many players returning after a turbulent expansion with Shadowlands. Now, aside from podcasting on Realm Maintenance, I haven't really shared a lot of my fleshed out thoughts on Dragonflight as a whole, so I figured I'd spend a ridiculous amount of time gathering footage and my thoughts and compile it all into a video about why I think it's such a unique expansion that, for the most part, it's going to set the initial tone for the upcoming World Soul Saga. So I think it should go without saying. So you might be a little confused about why I'm saying that Dragonflight wasn't my favorite expansion while it was at the same time. And I'm going to get into that. I've kind of broken the video up into two sections. There's a lot that I like about Dragonflight, but there's also a lot that I didn't like about it. So I've split it up into two sections of what I liked and what I didn't like. So that way I'm organized. Now, I'm just going to start off by saying that this video is going to be completely based off of my own personal enjoyment of the game. If I need to provide any kind of factual evidence or anything like that, I'll probably provide it in the description, but I'm not really going to go too heavy into research beyond creating a general template for me to follow just so I can stay on track, because I love to tangent. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and follow me over on my other socials. So to kick things off with what I liked about Dragonflight, first we're going to start with raiding. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of raiding beyond normal just because I really don't care to play the game beyond normal raiding. I used to enjoy it a lot more, but right now I'm at the point where I don't really care to do AOTC unless there's some kind of a mount, and this expansion didn't really have a lot of mounts that really enticed me to play for AOTC. So I just really ended up staying in normal and then finding other things to do with my time. That leads into my second topic, bullet point thing, which would probably be rating. No, I just said rating. Variety. Yes, it's variety. I don't think that my playtime actually declined this expansion. If anything, I probably played Dragonflight more than I have with any previous expansion, but I feel like a reason why that happened is just because there was so much more to do in terms of how I could engage with World of Warcraft, not just as retail, but as classic, Season of Discovery. I might throw a Warcraft Rumble in there, and any other form that we were able to play, like Plunderstorm. You wanna do it, bitch? You wanna do it, bitch? Let's go, bitch. And Mop Remix. I'm gonna include those into the fold just because I think they're kind of important and they're still Warcraft at its core. While there was plenty to do, I don't think everything to do was necessarily fun or engaging, but I do think that across the board there was still way more to do this expansion, especially like if we're comparing it to Shadowlands. There's just significantly more to do, and by extension, because there's more to do, there's more to enjoy. My next topic, I don't even think I can really call it a topic. It's more just kind of like a feeling, but I felt like Dragonflight was an expansion that really allowed me to not have to feel like sorry. So I'd say no sorries. As in, like, I didn't feel bad for taking time to play a bunch of other games. And when I say a bunch, I played through Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, all the way through Endwalker. I played a good chunk of V Rising, Overwatch 2, Tales of Kinzera Zao, Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok. I played so many games.
I mean, the list can go on and on.
And I still had time for Dragonflight, and I still had time to accomplish what I wanted to do. And so I feel like while this expansion has been shorter, I've been able to consistently do what I wanted to do each patch cycle, and I haven't really felt bad about missing the things that I didn't really care for. I don't know how else to put it other than I just didn't really feel like I had to kind of like apologize or make excuses for why I wasn't playing the game. Just if I wasn't playing the game because I felt like I wanted to play something else, then I didn't really feel bad about it. And I feel like that was a starch. stark difference between Shadowlands and Dragonflight. For this experiment section, I'm going to be talking a lot about, well, maybe not a whole lot, but I'm going to be talking about Classic, Season of Discovery. I'm also going to be talking about Retail, which I feel that these two intersect in a lot of ways, in the sense that the health of one can kind of dictate a burst of life in the other, which I still find really interesting. Season of Discovery was unique in that, to me, it felt like it was different enough from Classic that I was really interested in trying it out. And what I found was that I really did enjoy vanilla WoW as a teenager, but this was familiar enough but different enough to where I didn't feel like I was treading old paths for little achievement or not really any gain. But it felt like a really fun reminder to play this version of WoW with a twist. It was also really refreshing to play Season of Discovery while having like a 2004 music playlist on and kind of reflecting to some of the most rich memories of gaming and pop culture history. I'll pause for a little montage here, but if you were there, you know, and if you're old like me, then you really do know. Plunderstorm and Mist of Pandaria remix were actually some of my favorite facets of Dragonflight, and I feel like those kind of exist outside of the main sphere of Dragonflight. I still really enjoyed both of these modes. I'm a huge fan of Fortnite, and as somebody with more hours logged in that game than one person should, I really enjoyed this take on the battle royale, and I thought it was really interesting. So I really commended the dev team for going outside of the box and trying something different. I know a lot of people didn't enjoy this, but I don't think that everything has to be targeted to be for 100% of the player base, because if you're going for that, you're going to fail all the time. So I think that this was successful. Mist of Pandaria remix especially. My main justification for that is you're kind of handing the keys to the kingdom to a lot of people who have been farming this content since it was relevant back in 2012. So you're talking about people who have been playing the game for over 12 years trying to get that content that somehow haven't managed to get it up until this point, even with increased drop chances of certain mounts and whatnot. I think that this was really cool to see them just give people access to stuff that they wanted, appearances and the tusks of Manoroth. It was enjoyable all around. I don't know, I feel like for me, like there were some negatives, but I honestly, it feels kind of petty to point out negatives when there were just so many good things about this. So I don't know, I feel like this was a success all around with them trying the experiments, and that's partially why I found Dragonflight to be so enjoyable. Was not necessarily because of Dragonflight, but because they had the opportunity to do different things outside of the main expansion. And whether people feel like it paid off or not, I think there was enough success and enough data that they probably found to where we're going to see a lot of cool things that are going to be able to be brought back to the game, and other things that we might see for the franchise moving forward. So I feel like this was only a plus, and we can't really pick apart a good thing. I don't know if I've mentioned that I'm old, but I'm old, and I've been playing the game for about 19 years at this point, and I don't think I've ever really classified myself as like a hardcore raider or PvPer or Mythic Pluser or collector, etc. But in more recent years, I'd probably say that I lean a little closer towards being a collector, if I had to say anything. I love the idea of accessorizing a character and building an image for them, and Dragonflight really cut down the amount of time it took to collect additional appearances for alts, and as someone who collects way more now, I really appreciate that, and it's part of the reason why I'm so excited for the War Within, because we're just getting even more good changes along with that to transmog. Some not so much, but mostly Warbands is giving us a lot of good changes for cosmetics. I also think the trading post kind of helped a lot with this, and it's really a unique way to introduce cosmetics that don't really make a whole lot of sense in terms of how they kind of get into the game lore-wise, but they still just are cool to see, and I really enjoyed that, especially as like a Final Fantasy 14 enjoyer. Just seeing more Mog that kind of matches the glam that they have in that game really kept me coming back to WoW, so I really appreciated that. I'm gonna be so frank, I hated this patch. Fractures in Time, Dawn of the Infinite, Time Rifts, the whole lot of that. I could not stand this entire patch cycle. I get that Chromie is now a flagship kind of character, but why was her ass the one that was rescuing Nozdormu and not his wife? Can someone please make that make sense to me? I know WoW has some Jerry Springer moments, but in what fresh hell would someone's wife sit back while her husband's about to be corrupted by the infinite Dragonflight? Make that make sense. After that, I didn't enjoy Dawn of the Infinite as a dungeon. Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands, they all have some really enjoyable mega dungeons, and I find Dawn of the Infinite to be lacking in that department when compared to its counterparts. And it does have some really pretty casting animations, and I'll give them that the art team really did what they could, but it was really just an unimaginative dungeon hopping from panel to panel, and there's really only 2 areas that kind of look different from the rest of the dungeon. Beyond that, I didn't really like it. I was genuinely hoping for a mega dungeon that was featuring Chromie, but it's actually not even come close to what my expectations were. Time Rifts were fun after the latency issues were smoothed out, but if it wasn't for Season 4 making them awakened, I probably wouldn't have returned to the Rifts, nor would I ever thought of them again. Overall, I just didn't really care for this patch. I wish if we could do anything that we could just retcon this and purge it from memory and act like it didn't even happen, because it just didn't do anything for me. So now that I'm thinking about it, I really should have just included public events together as one entry with probably Dawn of the Infinite. But I wasn't really thinking, and there's no rhyme or reason to this list, so I'm just going to list it separately and talk about why I didn't like it. I actually started out liking public events at first, but I think my major complaint with them is that they're timed and not instanced, so they ended up becoming rather hands-off, like Researchers Under Fire or Grand Hunts. I already discussed Time Rifts, like I said, so I'll leave that one alone, but there's a lot of public events, and they all just tend to fall in the same category. It's kind of bland gameplay, click on these, fill this bar, do this, and it's the same facade that's just kind of painted over it. We see this in different expansions, like BFA had the N'Zoth invasions, and I feel like these are reminiscent of that. And sure, they're gameplay, but I just didn't enjoy them. So I really hope, like, moving forward in the War Within, that we see less of these and just some more inventive ways for us to engage with the zones. So Mythic Plus is actually my favorite pillar of the game. I don't play it to an extreme extent. I probably play up to Keystone Master and then usually call it a day, but there's a lot of times where I'll level alts just with the sole purpose of trying them out in keys for myself, and I feel like I really did that a lot this expansion. I did a lot in Shadowlands too, actually, but I did that more so this expansion just for the hell of it, because I'm like that. But I did kind of feel that feeling tapering off around Season 3. I'd say that Season 2 and the beginning of Season 3 were probably my lowest played. Actually, no, that's a lie. I didn't play a whole lot around Season 1 and Season 2, but I did come back more around Season 3 and Season 4 when I started getting a dedicated team for Mythic Plus. And I think that actually is what kind of kept me going, because if I wouldn't have had a team kind of pushing me to get KSM, I don't think I would have had any motivation to get it at all this expansion. I didn't really enjoy the dungeon pool. I'm not sure if I just got bored of it, feeling somewhat monotonous, but in my head I'd kind of worked out that I was doing more of the same, and it really only kept me around until I achieved Keystone Master. I love dungeons, but for me the dungeon pool was very weak, and I think that kind of says a lot about the dungeon pool when more than a quarter of the dungeons that we were able to pick in Mythic Plus were from previous expansions. For some reason, they felt too methodical, too surgical, for that matter, too, and I think that that's not really the spirit of Mythic Plus. For me, the apex of Mythic Plus were actually Battle for Azeroth and even parts of Shadowlands. I think that spontaneity kind of keeps that richness of Mythic Plus. Well, I don't even know what richness means in terms of Mythic Plus, but it just kind of keeps the gameplay of Mythic Plus exciting, that, you know, a seasonal affix could be something that either makes or wipes a key. And I know a lot of people didn't really enjoy that. A lot of people liked how approachable Mythic Plus was this season, but I think it made it, I think it was too simple. So I think that, again, like, I'm not really going to be discussing a whole lot of the War Within here, but there's changes coming to Mythic Plus in the War Within that I feel like are really going to make it more exciting for people who are kind of like me, who eventually get to that point where they're like, okay, I've played this part, I've played keys 2 through 10 so long that I'm just bored of it. I need a new challenge now. I don't know where I was going with that thought, and there's that one that we get every single video. Like most expansions from the past, Dragonflight also had its issues, but I think for me the pros actually far outweigh the cons. While I may not have been fully on board for the story, I was still able to find enjoyment in other quest lines like the Blue Dragonflight, and while I don't enjoy PvP overall, I still did engage with that pillar far more than I ever have in the past. I'm probably a rare WoW case in that I don't really believe that WoW has horrible expansions, but I don't always base it off of the same factors as everyone else does, so I'm okay with saying that BFA was my favorite expansion because I had a lot of fun with friends at the time, or that I actually enjoyed Shadowlands in my time in it because it got me to play classes and specs that I probably wouldn't look at twice. It's actually the main reason why I'm a healer main now, so I don't know, maybe I'm just a freak of nature. So while Dragonflight may have had some points that I didn't enjoy, overall I still did enjoy my time in the expansion, and I'm glad to have got to experience it, but I'm ready for this chapter to be over and for us to dive into some new adventures. Thank you to everyone who tuned into this video. Your viewership is more than appreciated here, and if you liked what you saw, then don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And if you really did enjoy what you saw, please let me know in the comments. Until next time...